Hello and welcome to This Is Jimmy. What do you want from the PS6?
I want it to be smaller. It's way too big.
So it might be a little weird to be talking about the PS6 literally a month after the PS5 started. You know what? I think it's never too early to start talking about what we want from the next gen of consoles.
It's constructive criticism because we all know they're already thinking about the PS6. So we'll give them our notes now, and then maybe we'll see them when the PS6 comes out.
So what are some of the key features you think you're going to want?
For real, I really want the PS6 to have a pretty major size reduction. I can't transport the PS5. It's just not possible. I can't really do it with the Series X either, but the idea of taking that thing out of my entertainment center, putting it in a backpack, basically I'd have to check a separate bag for it. And just when you have a console that big, I don't know if this is true, it just feels like it'll break easier if it's in a checked bag or something. Like it feels like there's more in there.
That is the most like first world problem I can think of. Like,
yeah.
It's like I travel too much that I need to bring my PS5. I'm not gonna buy a second PS5.
I spent $500 on it. Like I feel like I already classed myself up a little bit.
And how much are you gonna spend checking bags?
Zero. I can't do it. I can't do it. It would be like $40.
So I mean, like, yeah, I agree on the size reduction. My entertainment center, I can barely fit the Series X in there, so I definitely can't fit the PS5. So the biggest thing I want them to do for next gen is just continue improving DualSense. So like I know it's only a month out from PS5, but I've said that I didn't think they implemented it that great with the launch. Like Astro's Playroom takes advantage of it, but then Spider-Man doesn't. Demon Souls kind of does.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's definitely not enough. Like I agree. I have all those games. So I got basically the full launch lineup, and Astro's Playroom, yes, great implementation of that.
But it's a tech
hardware.
demo.
Yeah, it's a tech demo. It's kind of like it's a half step to a full game. It's bigger than you would expect, but it's not a full experience. Call of Duty uses it in the story, but if you're in multiplayer, you don't want that adaptive trigger on because the amount of time that it takes for the trigger to actually start firing the gun, that's a disadvantage you're basically setting yourself up for. So if you're playing Call of Duty multiplayer or zombies, that's off. You're not using it. Spider-Man does use it kind of. You have to know how to do it though. Like you're not supposed to pull the trigger all the way in when you're web swinging. You're supposed to like go to the tension point and then you can go past it and it'll swing a little faster. It's not good enough though. I
think on the first party Insomniac game, it should have been super intuitive.
It feels like they didn't go far enough with it. I don't think Demon Souls really does anything with it at all.
It's more the haptics on it that it does. But so that's one of the things I would hope that they continue is a better implementation of just like general haptics. Your big issue is that it's too big and you need to carry it around with you.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right,
I have bigger ones. I have bigger problems than that. That was just the first icebreaker problem.
All right, but you know what I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, that it's a console at all. You want it to be streaming. You don't even want the console. You want it to be this little USB stick that connects to your DualSense. You plug it into your TV, your PC, whatever. The whole console's on there, and you play everything over the internet.
Correct. I think that this should be the last generation of physical, like, consoles. I think there's always gonna be like a dongle or something that would to implement it. I don't think it should be let up to TV manufacturers to have like an app. I think that's a bad idea.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I agree that some people's internet is not that great. However, we're talking 6, 7, 8 years from now.
I'd say 7. You can just say 7.
7. That's
how long this gen's gonna be. And honestly, I don't like streaming. I play on PC mostly, I will say. So I like downloading my games, having them on my device. But if they come out of the gate next gen in 7 years with an option where you can log into your PSN account, download your saves to the device, and then you plug it in your PC and you have that option to always keep it in your bag, that's actually pretty useful to me, I would think, just so I always have access to my actual save. That kind of leads me though into my next thing I really want, which is cross-save and cross-play with PS5 or PS6 and PC. That's what I really want. We're kind of already seeing it with Ubisoft, with Immortals Phoenix Rising and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can upload your save to the cloud, and if you go on your Switch for Immortals, you can download that save and just play right where you left off. That is the coolest feature ever. I have Assassin's Creed on Xbox Series X and PC, and being able to just use that same save, that's all I want, really, because I feel like Sony, instead of porting all their games to PC and having cross-save, the way they can kind of control their ecosystem is by doing what you're saying and having a separate device you can plug into your PC, play your PS5 games over the cloud.
So Game Pass kind of does that right now.
It's great.
But then it's weird because some of the games on Game Pass are console versions, some of them are Windows 10 versions, and those cross-saves don't always
even
talk.
There, they don't have cross-save for all of their first-party titles.
Exactly. It's
like,
weird.
The Outer Worlds, that is the one game where if it had cross-save, I would be so happy, because that's a long RPG that I could go play in a plane and then get home, turn on my PS5 or my Xbox Series X with Game Pass, and then have the save downloaded. That would be so much more convenient.
That was the one for me, was City Skylines, because I was playing it on console, and then I went on PC, and it was the Windows 10 version, which it didn't cross save. I'm going to use Cyberpunk as the example here, because, all right, we look in, Cyberpunk had a pretty turbulent launch on consoles. Let's face it.
Last gen consoles.
Let's face it. It's a brand new game. It's last gen hardware. No one's expecting it to run perfectly, but for a lot of people, it was to the point where unplayable. The only console that didn't have that issue was Stadia.
Right.
So there's a lot of things, a lot of problems that people, like a lot of pain points that people have that are solved with something like Stadia. Again, I'm not advocating for Stadia specifically. Right. I think we're in 7 years, we can get, like you say, good enough. Because where can we go with video quality, with quality of these games?
Yeah.
How much better can we actually get? Because we're getting into a huge state of diminishing returns. Like, if we jump to from 4K to 8K, you're not going to see these massive differences.
Right, and then you got to upgrade your TV, you got to pay for all this extra stuff. And if you upgrade your TV mid-gen to 8K for some reason, when the PS6 comes out, they're going to have some new feature like 120 hertz that you're going to have to upgrade your TV again. I get the pain point there. The problem is, I think it'll never really be able to take over the experience of having a device that can download the games to it because of stuff like data caps and just overall internet speed. They're going to make sure that they don't fully switch over to it until everyone who was going to buy a PS6 that could download games would also potentially buy this secondary device. And they've tried this before, like with the PS Vita, you could do remote play, and it actually worked pretty well if you were in the same network as your PS4. So I think the reason they're always trying so hard to sell us on the idea of this all streaming, all digital future is mainly because of control and not necessarily because of experience. And that's why I'm always so skeptical and I guess antagonistic towards it.
I won't argue that point. I get where people are coming and saying I like owning my games and everything like that, but you don't. Even when you have even when you have physical games in this day and age with these modern consoles, you do not own your games.
It kind of depends where you buy them, though, because even if you get Cyberpunk on Steam, you get a DRM-free copy.
That's where it's, again, you don't fully own those games.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why they want to get to that future. But you brought up a good point here. Backwards compatibility. That is something I would really like to see, especially from Sony, because with the PS4 generation, it was annoying that you couldn't play PS3 games, but in my mind, I figured, oh, they'll do remasters or they'll do full remakes. And then by the time the PS5 comes out, they'll have PS3 backwards compatibility figured out, because it comes down to the fact that that console was notoriously hard to develop for. And now here we are with the PS5, and there is no future of PS3 back compat in sight. And that is really bothersome to me, because there are a lot of good games trapped on PS3.
You look at like how much back compatibility Xbox has, which is right now anything that was available, like you could play on Xbox One can be played on Series X, and they are planning on expanding it. Sony, as of right now, doesn't have a ton of plans to expand that back.
Right, because they just say, oh, you can use PS Now and go play these PS3 games at a completely subpar experience. Like if I'm playing a PS3 game, I want that to run as native as possible on the device I'm using, because it's already hampered in terms of graphics and just overall gameplay. So I don't want latency. I don't want resolution that's rising and falling when the game is already running at like what, 720p. It's crazy that there are more Metal Gear Solid games playable on Xbox consoles than PlayStation. I was positive, like so positive, they were gonna have backwards compatibility figured out for this console. And I know that the argument is if it was a feature people used, they would develop it. And I disagree with that, because once it was introduced on Xbox, that's when I started using it. I didn't want it before it was there, but once it was put there,
it's also like, how do you use it if it's not there?
Right.
So like, yeah, like you said, I go back and play a bunch of the 360 games. One of them is like Fable 2. It's like one of my favorite games of all time. I love so that.
Good. But yeah, I mean, the PS6, I really can't even conceptualize what it'll be like, because it's so far in the future. Obviously, like you said, 8K is the biggest thing. I just want backwards compatibility, smaller console, cross-save, cross-play. I feel like those are all just really easy boxes to check that make it worth buying.
All right. So let us know in the comments what you want from the next gen of consoles. Look at some of our other videos. And by the way, Jimmy's our editor. We probably should have introduced you in the beginning.